Georgia's Hidden Treasures. Explore the homes of a former slave turned Atlanta's first black millionaire,
They were far above their time.
and how a dentist turned into the Western legend Doc Holliday.
Most of them don't know that he was born in Georgia.
Their untold stories and how they changed Georgia history. Now on Georgia's Hidden Treasures.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jovita Moore.
I'm Justin Farmer.
Tonight, we are taking you inside 3 Georgia homes that are also national landmarks.
The men who lived in those homes made history, including a slave turned millionaire who changed lives when the odds were stacked against him.
Alonzo Herndon was born on a farm in Georgia during a time when people were judged by their skin color and not by the type of person that they were on the inside. He and his family were slaves and were owned by the owners of the farm where they lived.
Adam Herndon is the great-great-nephew of Alonzo Herndon, and author of a new children's book. The book is the true story, a literal story of how a slave became a millionaire.
As he grew up, while other kids went to school, Alonzo had to work doing odd jobs like selling peanuts and molasses to earn money. He was always careful to save a small amount of money, setting it aside in a secret place so that someday in the future he could use it to do something to make his life better.
Adam Herndon grew up in California, thousands of miles from Atlanta's Diamond Hill. The year, 1996, and Adam was a college track student competing at the Georgia Dome. His decision to move a few blocks down to visit the Herndon home changed everything. As you started learning more, was it almost spiritual, I imagine, as you're sort of uncovering your family and your family's significance?
I grew up in California. I wasn't directly immersed in the Atlanta community, but I knew about the legacy of Alonzo Herndon. But it's a big difference between seeing something from afar and reading in a book than actually be here and be able to walk around the house and read different artifacts and see photographs of the family. And it just changed. It was a very eye-opening experience because it made me realize, hey, it's time to step your game up and do what you were called to do.
Alonzo Franklin Herndon was born in 1858 in Social Circle, Georgia. His father was his white slave master. After emancipation in 1865, Alonzo, his brother, and his mother became sharecroppers. At age 20, Alonzo moved on, opened a barber shop in Jonesboro, and started down the road to a business empire in Atlanta.
Barbering was one of the better things for black people to do back in the day. So if you were a barber, you were considered an important person.
This is 66 Peachtree today. In Alonzo's day, it was the crown jewel in his chain of barbershops. The customers were white and wealthy.
The one that he gets the most credit for was the Crystal Palace, which was at 66 Peachtree Street, where he had 23 smart black barbers who could cut hair immaculately, but could not cut their own hair because of the Jim Crow laws that we have had here in the city.
He was smart because he listened. Now, the barbershop during that time, it was whites only as patrons. And that was only where the judges, the lawyers, the people who had a lot of money, they were his clients. So as they talked about business and different tactics, Alonzo listened. Alonzo soaked up the knowledge. Alonzo took that knowledge and was able to do great things with it.
He was able to parlay that entrepreneurial spirit into the development business, and he started to develop this entire neighborhood around us now.
The neighborhood is Vine City. Alonzo Herndon bought homes, fixed them up, and rented them back to black families.
That was a plus for black people, to have just a comfortable place to live.
Alonzo made his home here. His first wife, Adrian, designed their 2-story, 15-room Beaux Arts home. The Herndons used African-American craftsmen to build the $10,000 house on the hill. It was finished in 1910.
It didn't exist anywhere else in the African-American community. Very few places in the Anglo-American community.
Architect Bill Stanley is chairman of the Herndon Foundation. He also grew up just a few blocks from here.
A commanding place, a building that's an Italian Renaissance building that had great materials. One thing that we know is that he didn't want red brick. He wanted a lighter colored brick because red brick was known as common brick, and this needed to be something with greater degree of grandeur. So Very few expenses were spared in putting this home together.
The house only cost $10,000. The property was $2,800, and it sits on a little less than 2 acres of land.
Visitors to Herndon home will see the family's formal living and dining rooms, and opulent music room, and the bedrooms upstairs.
They moved in the first part of 1910, and by April 6th, she had passed on.
Alonzo's first wife, Adrian, lived here just a few months. Second wife, Jessie, spent years in the home. So did his son, Norris, who grew up and stayed until he died in 1977. Docent Roberta Phillips knew Norris. She worked at the life insurance company founded by his father.
I went there April 17, 1957, and I retired July 14, 1998. It was a very good place to be at that time. There were not too many office jobs for black people back in the day. And working for the Atlanta Life proved to be a place that I enjoyed having been.
Atlanta Life Insurance was Alonzo Herndon's third occupation after barbering and real estate. He is widely considered Atlanta's first black millionaire.
Very unique, extremely unique. Very few people out of slavery were able to do very much more than preach or teach if they were afforded an education at all.
Alonzo had almost no formal education, but he was a philanthropist, and education was a priority.
They were responsible for expanding Atlanta University and built a lot of that.
Stanley says Alonzo also made sure his son Norris could carry on the family's legacy.
He sent him to Harvard. He became the second African-American to receive an MBA in Harvard and came back and ran the company.
Norris and Atlanta Life were silent backers of Atlanta's civil rights movement. The company posted bond when protesters went to jail in the 60s and taught employees about nonviolent ways to demonstrate. Norris likely learned from his father's example. Alonzo was part of the Niagara movement, which was the precursor to the NAACP, to end segregation.
The Niagara movement in 1905, which was the precursor to the NAACP, he had Norris in the picture along with him. It was a picture of him, W.B. Du Bois, as well as some other elites, black elite during that time. And the only child in that picture was Norris.
And Adam showed us this picture of Alonzo and Norris and said it's one of his favorites. And then there's this, his great-great-uncle's desk, one of the many original items still in place inside the home.
So preserving this means so much because?
It means so much because this is a history lesson.
Adam Herndon says he learns just a little more about that history every time he walks into one of these rooms.
What they did in designing the home was they got different ideas when they were in Europe. They got different artifacts, they got different furniture and had it shipped here because a lot of people weren't allowed the opportunity to travel to Europe or travel the world. So they wanted to bring the world to Atlanta because during that time they held meetings here for different organizations. And so they wanted to say, look, there's a whole nother world out there. And if you work hard and you strive hard, there's a whole nother world out there for you.
He believes his family name comes with a responsibility to give back, a lesson from an uncle he never knew.
His dream had come true. The boy who started off his life as a slave working the fields was now a wealthy business owner. And for the rest of his life, he did whatever he could to try to help other people achieve their dreams too.
The Herndon home was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 2000. Herndon Stadium at Morris Brown College and the now demolished Herndon homes are just two of the landmarks in Atlanta named for the family.
Next, a Georgia dentist who made headlines at the OK Corral.
We used to call it where the Old South meets the Wild West.
The unlikely connection to Gone with the Wind. Plus, a look inside a restored home filled with holiday history. Plus, he's been called the Billy Graham of the 1800s. How his cottage has changed into one of Georgia's most spectacular mansions. Georgia's Hidden Treasures.